I suppose there are some couples who look at you and go, oh, like, because you've done destination weddings, you must be versatile and experienced. You must be really good.
Which is true. Like, you do tend to be more experienced the more you do it.
That is true.
Yeah.
That is true. And I think, yes, it does set this like premiumization. I think that's the word.
I don't think that's a word, but
premiumization.
Maybe it is. I don't know. It sounds like something you just made up.
I'll just redo that.
Go on.
It sets a premium vibe.
Yeah.
It sets a premium vibe.
Straight to like
dumb it down. I'm pretty sure premiumization
vocabulary straight away.
I'm pretty sure premiumize. Nah, fuck it.
Make sure you keep this in. Don't cut this shit out.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Cameramen Show. My name's Kartik.
I'm Manav.
And in this podcast, we talk all things weddings, cameras, and business.
So we just shot a destination wedding recently in Italy, not too long ago. And I thought we should talk about the pros and cons of having a destination wedding, not only from couple's perspective, but also from the photographer's perspective. Like the photographers that are looking to do destination weddings in the future, why they might or might not want to be doing destination weddings, and also from a couple's perspective in a way that if you are looking to do a destination wedding, then there's a lot of things that you got to keep in mind.
I think you're right. I think this entire concept of destination weddings is glamorized, and it should be because it is a really fun thing. But I also think there should be some points that the audience should know if you're a photographer or if you're a couple potentially planning your wedding, as to what those pros and cons could look like. So Manav and I have put together a list that we'll just go through, and we'll just explain our experiences behind it. And if you guys enjoy this segment, this episode, then make sure to hit that like button, comment down below your favorite parts, and let's just dive straight in.
Do you want to talk about the photographers first or the couples?
Let's just go straight to the couple.
Couples are cool.
Yeah, couples.
Right. Yep.
Okay, so in terms of the first pro, in terms of why it's great to potentially have a destination wedding, what I mean by that is I think a lot of people who plan destination weddings go, you know what? It's a great way, especially if you're a South Asian couple, it's a great way to cut your numbers. Because a typical wedding that I think you and I capture, if you're in Sydney or other areas local to your own respective country, you're probably looking at around about 200-300, sometimes 400 people, and it gets loud. And
I think this applies to the kind of weddings we shoot, which is Southeast Asian, but it also applies to white weddings as well. Local white weddings, you will probably have 100, 150 people at a wedding easily. But as if you go to a destination one, you cut that down to 50,
Yeah,
30
it's interesting because we've shot destination weddings, even in Italy. I think that was a number of 70, dare I say? Or was it less, 50?
I think somewhere between 50 to 70.
It was two digits, it wasn't three digits. So it was 50 to 70, which for an Indian wedding is actually quite low.
Yeah.
I've shot my first ever destination wedding, which was in Portugal, and that was 75 people. But then equally, I've had another destination wedding in Portugal, which is 500 people. So majority of the time, you'd probably cut your numbers, but there are exclusions to that rule. Sometimes people actually want the large numbers.
What I can think of is the one I shot in Fiji as well. That was around about 100 people, I'd say.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so definitely they tend to, on most of the time, be smaller in numbers than if you're shooting a wedding locally in your own area. So I feel like it provides more for an intimate settings, because you can have your close family and friends there. You don't have to worry about the 1,500 uncles that your
the people that you don't even know. You're your dad's or your mom's parents, friends or some shit that you don't even care about.
You've never met them in your life, but hey, we got to invite them to a wedding because hey, that uncle might get offended.
If they didn't come, they're going to be so upset that we invited them, but they didn't come to ours.
So I think one definitely a pro of having a destination wedding is you get to
just cut numbers.
You enjoy just with the people that you're very close to. And another thing that comes to mind is when you normally tend to have destination weddings, they're kind of all-inclusive packages where you have wedding coordinators already on site.
Yeah, correct.
You have local vendors that are already for example, if you're booking a certain venue, that venue already knows all the vendors that are local to that venue, right?
Yeah.
So they all have some sort of a combined package that you can get, which kind of reduces the stress of the couple in a little bit. That hey, you don't really have to plan as much. You make locally, you have to contact every vendor, separately and stuff.
I think this definitely applies to certain venues that have the appeal as a destination venue, right? So there are certain parts in the world where venues in certain countries are known to be, people fly in for this stuff, right? And I can speak specifically from the Portugal weddings that I've done, where for all the 3 weddings that I've done, all 3 venues have been known for people to just do weddings there abroad. And each of those ones actually come with their own coordinator and like someone who you liaise with on the day to go, actually, this is the person we're going to contact through for all of our vendors. So it just helps to have an all-inclusive package. And I think most venues in particular destination countries, especially in like Asian countries as well, they'll often recommend that these are the people who you should contact for your go-to for supplies. And sometimes they do combined packages, which may make it easier in terms of the communication aspect. Because I think, and we'll go into the cons in a bit, but one of the challenges I think some people often think about is going, well, because we're local and they're abroad, we have to find different people from different places. So it sometimes helps when there are services like, wedding coordinators who have all-inclusive packages, so it just makes it easy for everyone to go, or like this is all part of, the one package.
As you said, like this is kind of a little bit of a con as well, if you think about it, because not only like, I mean, it's great if you have like people that have like all-inclusive packages, but that's not the case all the time, right? A lot of destination weddings, you have to like look for vendors that you want, like separate vendors. And I feel like you have to like constantly visit the site as well, again and again, right? Because I remember speaking to the one, like the couple who we shot in Italy, and they were like, we had to like visit that place a few times, and they'd already been there, which also increases the cost a little bit, because you only have, I mean, for them it was all right because they were like, I mean, from like London to Italy,
yeah, I getcha.
The flights are not that expensive.
Yeah,
but if you're, for example, having a destination wedding, you're like from Sydney or wherever, and you got to fly out to like Bali or whatever, like 2 or 3 times, the costs add up in the end.
Yeah, I mean, if we're on the the con sort of list and adding to that, I think there's a couple of ways to do it if you're a couple, right? So I know that generally sometimes there's an etiquette behind this, and there's 2 types of situations, or 3. The first situation as a couple is you cover your guests' accommodation, right? Which means that there might be an additional cost to that. If
good luck with that. Most couples ain't covering the
like,
guest accommodation. Yeah, it's like, oh, the wedding is already expensive as it is, and now I'm gonna pay for everyone else.
I think it really just depends on if, say, for instance, your venue is going, hey, like we provide everything for you, so we provide the hotel and we provide the venue. Sometimes they will have that entire package inclusive, so maybe it might financially work out. I think the
do you think couples pay for all the guests there?
Well, it depends. This is what I was sort of going into, right? So there's 3 situations here, but going before that, so it depends on what the context is for your venue in your respective destination, right? So say for instance you've got a venue that is also a combined hotel. They'll probably do a package deal there. But say, for instance, your venue isn't part of a hotel, you'd have to book that offsite separately. That's a completely different experience. Yeah. But what I was going with in terms of the 3 situations, if you're a couple, so the first situation is you cover for your guests' accommodation. The second situation is you're a bit bougie and very nice. You cover for their accommodation and their flights. Now, that's obviously a lot, and it's very rare. That's a lot.
Think about like,
but it's very rare. It's very rare.
Yeah, but think about like 50 people, right? And flights ain't cheap unless you're like, as I said, unless you're like everyone is like from London, for example, and everyone's going to Italy. Then you're gonna have like $200 a flight or whatever, right?
Or maybe you're just an elite financial well-off situation, true. Like you can afford to do it because you've cut your numbers and you're like actually it works out. So you want everyone to sort of just be taken care of, and that I guess is to each individual circumstances. That situation isn't as common though. Like you're not going to have everyone say, "Oh, I'm going to cover your flights." The third situation, and which is like what I've seen sometimes, is there's no cost, as in for the couple. The people who want to be there will pay for their flights and accommodation. Sometimes that doesn't happen. I've shot a few destination weddings now where it's usually more so the couple cover the accommodation side, the flights you have to cover. So I think as a con, depending on where you are with your finances as a couple, you might go, actually, you know what? It might be a bit more, it might be cost expensive, so you might add a few costs on there, or depending on what context you go with, you might save a few costs because you're not going, actually the couples can fund their own trip.
I think the one that probably happens the most commonly is probably like a mix between those 3 points, which I would say from my experience, like a lot of couples pay for like, let's say the closest 10 people. Like for example, venues only have a certain amount of capacity, right? Yep. So like who's immediate to you, like, your parents, his parents, her parents, maybe like very close friends, like maybe about 20 people or 15 people that can stay on site, right? Maybe couples pay for that. And then everyone else is off site, obviously is going to pay for themselves, right? So my question is, what, like, if you were a groom or like getting married, what do you think you would do?
Well, so my first question is, well, it depends how many people I have, right?
Okay, let's say you have 50 people at your wedding.
Let's get 75. Halfway between 50 and 100, right? 75 people. And it's a combination of my closest friends and her closest friends, whoever my partner would be.
What do you think is, and in terms of etiquette, right? In terms of like what, like, I want you to put yourself in the shoes of the groom and be like, would that piss people off?
I don't know, because I don't know how I would separate that. Like, everyone who would be there, I would imagine should be close to me. And I don't know how I would go, I'm going to pay for my sister's flights and accommodations, but I'm not going to pay for my best friends. Like, that for me is a bit hard. I don't know if also 75 is a realistic number, because I'm thinking my close friend right now is getting married in Thailand next year. And what I thought would be a small number actually ends up being apparent to 150. Now, that's obviously a decent sized crowd too. So where do you go from that? And again,
Thailand ain't cheap. Like, if you're going from here, especially like Sydney, I know it's like supposed to be one of those countries that's close to us. Yeah.
And that's the thing. Like, I don't know what that would be. What about you? How would you sort of do it if you had, say, 75 people for a destination wedding? Obviously, you're married right now, but if you had to redo that, what would it be for you?
I would say, as I said, close family. Probably, I'd pay for them. Myself.
Okay. Yeah, fair.
But all people that are not inside my close family, they'll probably pay
still
for
close
themselves.
enough, but just not the immediate family.
Because I'm thinking of what would, if I was the friend and my friend got married, like, I would probably pay for my own flights. I don't think I'd be like, oh, pay for my flights. That's the only reason I'm going to come to your wedding, right? Okay, for example, if you got married tomorrow and you're having a destination wedding, I wouldn't expect you to pay for my flights.
Yeah, right.
I would pay for my flights, accommodation. I mean, if you want to do it, I'm not gonna say no.
Thanks, Manav. Yeah, no worries, bro. Yeah, so
I'm not gonna say no, but I would say, like, I would expect to pay for my own flights, my own accommodation. I think that's what you can expect from most of your close friends.
Depends, and I think this is where the context just comes into play. The pro, if you're a couple and going, oh, okay, I want to do my destination wedding. What are the pros? Another pros to this is that having a destination wedding, your guests get an experience. So it's not just for you guys. Your guests get to travel out and actually go.
Are you saying that justifies them paying for themselves because they're kind of having a holiday out of it as well?
Yeah, for instance, like, I'm going to Thailand next year for my best friend's wedding. It's very nice to go, I get to be with cool people in a country that I would like to visit and have an experience out of that.
And then once the wedding is over, you can kind of turn it into like another holiday and travel
if you want. So I think from the point of view as like a guest attending a wedding, it does seem very nice to go, you know what, I get to travel with my best couple of friends to a wedding together, get to meet a whole bunch of people, get to see the local culture, all while celebrating my best friend's wedding. Like, how wonderful would that be? And I think the other pro to this is that it also invites entertainment and an appreciation for the culture locally. And what I mean by that is, say, for instance, as a Fiji wedding, you might have like Fiji dances or people doing like fire dances and stuff. Yeah. I remember doing a wedding in New Zealand where they had like Maori dances and stuff. And I thought that was actually really exciting. So the pro to this is that it often provides a unique experience, like with the...
You're not going to get that locally.
Correct. Like, you're not going to get all that stuff in Sydney or wherever you are locally. So I think, not only do you get to, show your guests a great time, but they get to take insight the local sort of, culture experience and really merge that with a holiday, but also a wedding at the same time.
One other potential pro that could be is that, I mean, we shoot weddings locally quite a lot, and you see like people spending a lot of money on like decor, right? I mean, at the same time, you have also shot destination weddings where people have gone like hard out with decor, right?
Yeah, correct.
But I would say you probably don't need to go hard out for decor for a destination wedding, because you already have like beautiful backgrounds for all the weddings. Like, imagine like doing your wedding like on a
think about
on
Italy,
a resort, right?
Yeah, think about Italy. Yeah. Like, when we shot that together, like the mountains and the sunset was our scenery.
Yeah,
like you can't get better than that.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it sometimes means you don't have to have the entire fee of decking out a venue when, if it's, say, an outdoor reception, like the mountains and the sunset, and then just have a few things on your table. What else do you need? You know what I mean? So I think it all to that point, that's actually a great idea, because it's like, if we're getting married at a venue that has a stunning backdrop and a stunning set and a stunning scenery, like, you don't think you have to invest too much into like, decor and a whole bunch of things to make it really glamorous. It's like you're taking in the natural environment.
On the flip side, though, like the whole weather could be like a con.
Yeah.
Like imagine like you plan like an outdoor wedding, like in like Italy or wherever, and then on your wedding day it just like pours down, right?
And I think this is
and
a
then you
risk.
have to move it inside, and then
Yeah.
it's like I didn't come here all the way to just get married in a hall, like indoor hall, right? Like most of the destination weddings are usually outdoor weddings.
And I think this is a risk, especially if you do it in like tropical countries. So say for instance like Bali, Thailand,
Fiji.
Vietnam, Fiji, right? Countries that are known to have monsoon seasons and like the tropical weather and stuff with the high humidity.
Yeah.
You're more prone to having like wet weather affect your potential wedding.
I mean,
And
obviously
again,
there's certain months that you can like kind of plan. Like for
Correct.
example, I think Fiji is like July or something or around there where it's like the lowest amount of rainfall. But you never know with these countries, like out of nowhere.
it's
like,
a gamble.
Yeah.
So, and I think this is where, being smart about it, going, okay, we want these countries because, we'd really like to visit it, but now going.
Or maybe you met there, or maybe you proposed there, whatever it is. Right? Yeah.
Or it's about going, okay, if there is wet weather, does our venue cater for contingency? And we still get the scenery of having windows to look at a really beautiful backdrop instead of being outside. You know what I mean? Like, I think, you can have, say Thailand as a good wedding, but if, say, it's known to piss down on the day, you can potentially have a venue that just goes, oh, we'll just set you up inside and you still get to see a beautiful scenery, even though it's still raining. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
As opposed to going like, oh, we'll do it outside and maybe all the guests get wet or whatever.
And mind you, like most of the destination weddings are usually like especially the ones we shoot anyway, the multi-day weddings, right?
Correct,
so
correct.
like there's a low chance of it's gonna rain every day, right? Like
So you might
still
get like
some
you get some sun probably on some of the days.
Yeah, so you might still get like some like nice shots outside, or might rain on certain days, but definitely good to have a venue that can do like indoor as well as outdoor. Yeah.
An additional con, just to think of things outside the box, is you might also be prone to like uncommon or hidden logistical costs as well. So, for instance, sometimes couples have to organize shuttle buses from like the airport to the venue. There's like a few additional, maybe small miscellaneous costs that you might not be aware of. And I think that just comes down to small planning, the nitty gritty things, which means that you really have to be a bit more involved. And this is sometimes about having a wedding planner local to that country, which might communicate to you and go, actually just be a heads up, like you'd have to fund this. This is another cost. Maybe food for the hotel is a bit more of an additional cost because now they have to use their services. I don't know, like smaller things that you may not be aware of might be an additional smaller cost to couples who are planning a potential destination wedding.
And what about the couples that like want to go to like Africa or something, right? To get married there? Because I know a couple of times that people have like gone from Sydney and like I know it's maybe because they are from Africa or they really want to get married in a certain country. Like you got like stuff like malaria and all this shit there, bro.
That's interesting.
You gotta get like proper injections before you go as well, right?
The last thing you expect is like shit, like there's a risk of us getting malaria whilst on this destination wedding.
Yeah.
So maybe
although like, I mean, obviously if you do end up getting married in like some country in Africa, you're probably going to like end up being in like a resort or some sort, right? But still like there's the chances.
The other hassle I've just realized is, imagine your best friend's married, but now like it's your wedding and your best friend's now just had a kid, a little one, and you really want your best friend to be there. It's like, I don't want to have to put my...
Ain't nobody taking their kid to a country that has malaria, bro.
And not only that, being on a long flight for over 13, 14 hours, that's a struggle, man. And I can understand and sympathize with people like, oh, look, we love you, but we just had a little one. We're not too comfortable and confident like just traveling on the plane. So something to think about. I know some people will probably go, oh, F yeah, like let's freaking do it. Some couples go, oh, actually, maybe we might just sit this one out because we just had a kid. So like something to be a bit more mindful about.
I think at the end of the day, I feel like the biggest pro that you can have from a destination wedding though is like you just get to spend quality time with like your loved ones, like your close mates, your close family, right? Without having like 500 people there, right?
Yeah.
And not only you get to spend that time during the wedding, you're generally doing a lot of activities outside of the wedding time.
Yeah.
You're just chilling, having beers, whatever, right?
There's a lot of like in-between gaps where it's not event focused. It's just, like the event doesn't start till 6 o'clock tonight for say a Singit, like pre-wedding event or whatever. So up until then, let's just go to the local beach. Just have a few drinks.
Perfect examples like I did a wedding like a few years ago in Fiji, right? Where like while the wedding wasn't happening on the days off, the couple's like, oh, let's just come chill in the pool with us, just have a beer or something. And it was like such a relaxing time and just chilling there and you just enjoy being there and just like
even in Portugal, I remember one of the weddings there was a welcome event at in the daytime, and it was a pool party, and the pool party literally went for like a couple of hours, sorry, and then after that people just kind of just kicked on, and then just they had a few more drinks. The couple was like, oh hey, like, you know, why don't you just come and join us? And it was a really fun in between moment. I felt like actually capturing it, but they're like, oh, camera's away, we're fine, it's pretty chill. But there's a lot of time in between all your events where you just get to actually spend time with. You know how many South Asian people do a full wedding week and be like, I feel like I haven't talked to anyone. Yeah. Because there's just so go. Yep. And they miss out on going, I just want to talk.
You actually miss out on enjoying the whole experience because there's just so much like to do logistically, right? Because look, always running around, you always have something to do during a wedding week.
And that's the biggest sadness when it comes to having the most important day of your life captured, but not being able to spend it with the most important people of your life. Like, we've shot many weddings where couples just been like, hey, like, I know we need to do a photo shoot, but can I just go and mingle for a little bit? And I'm like, oh my God, yeah, for sure, go for it. And I feel destination weddings really enable that.
Yeah, and destination weddings gives you more time for those photos as well. If you think about it, right? To get those kind of photos as a couple, you tend to have like a longer sunsets. True. A lot of countries have like sunset, the light will just stay the same for like 3-4 hours, right?
Yeah, true.
And it doesn't matter if you shoot at like 5 p.m. or 7 p.m. You're just gonna get like beautiful light as well. Like for us especially, like you get the 1 or 2 hour window where you have to have your evening photos at that time, otherwise you're not going to get good photos, right?
The other part for the couple, which I think adds on to the pros of just doing a destination wedding, is like you're already in the country, so thinking about doing a honeymoon may just mean you just extend your trip a little bit, and obviously it's just you two. But I think it's nice because say for instance, you know, you plan a destination wedding in say Italy, right? And your wedding's done as if you wouldn't
just
travel,
go around,
like just go travel already, you're already there. And you may as well make the most of it.
Yeah, make a honeymoon out of it. Exactly. And that saves on your flights and trying to like plan a separate honeymoon and everything as well. Back to that point where you're talking about the pool party. Remember the pool party we had in Italy, right? That was a lot of fun.
That was fun.
I feel like that's like, it was like right after the wedding day in the morning, right? And it was a really good time for the couple and the friends to just decompress before the reception.
It was so good. It was best because they got to relax. They got to talk about everything, just enjoy everything. It was fun. We had a fun time shooting that. I feel like for us to perform, it wasn't that like it wasn't a big job. It was like, oh, let's just capture this.
Yeah, just capturing what's happening.
And that was really fun. That was really fun. A con to this that I thought of, which, you know, wanted to communicate is, although yes, having a destination wedding means that your wedding planner, which you most likely would have preferred vendors that has always worked at that venue, you might actually have someone abroad, right? So I know for a fact that there are, you know, even my best friend getting married, they're bringing their own hair and makeup artist because that's how good she is. And I think it makes it to a point going, well, in order to do that, there might be a higher fee. There might be the fee of obviously their travel and accommodation, and then their service fee on top of that. Whereas if you had a local vendor, no travel fee because they're already there. Accommodation potentially, but otherwise it does take out that aspect. And so I think one of the things to consider is if you are planning for a destination wedding, and you might have a vendor that like, this person is my guy or my girl. This is the person that I know I want to capture my wedding or do my hair and makeup or do my DJing, right? I remember Italy, they brought the DJ from, I think it was from the States, I think it was. Yeah. Hair and makeup they bought from Australia. So the cost for that will also add up. And I think that's something for people to also be aware of, to go, do you have a preferred vendor? If not, then that's okay. But if you do, think about those things.
Now, talking about vendors, I do want to get into the photographer's side, where as being a photographer, you've done a lot of destination weddings because you're based in London. I was
based in UK for a year and a bit.
Yeah. So you went around pretty much like most of Europe shooting destination weddings around that time. Now, as a photographer, what do you think personally was your biggest pro?
Biggest pro?
Yeah.
That's a great question. Biggest pro? Experience. Bruh, I tell you now, I'll probably be 90. And I look back at those times of my life and go, I got to shoot a wedding in Portugal 3 times. I got to shoot a wedding in Germany. I got to travel to Spain for a couple photo shoot. I got to do, you know, San Fran and America and do a couple of areas there for photo shoots. You cannot exchange that for anything. And there is not a job. I mean, there are a few jobs, but there is not a job as often as I come by that goes, you know what, I get to I get paid to do what I love in a country that I've never been to, and to create content that is amazing for the couple and amazing for me, and to really enjoy that entire experience. Like, it kills 2 birds with 1 stone, being able to travel as a passionate person who loves traveling and seeing different cultures, but to then combine that with something that I love doing, which is photography. And I think for those photographers sort of looking into whether destination weddings are a pro for them or whether they're considering it, I can guarantee you, like, you're not going to walk away from a European country going, oh, that was lame. That was boring, because that very rarely happens. And if it does, and maybe re-question your life a little bit there. But I genuinely loved it. The experience was phenomenal. I always extended my trips. I've done a photo shoot in Greece, and I went to Mykonos and Santorini for those photo shoots. Once the photo shoots were done, I took myself out for dinner, and I had the most beautiful dinner sunsets on my own. It was pretty sad, actually. Like, people were looking at me going, should we sit with this guy? It was just one person just sitting on their own. But it was a wonderful experience. Yeah. And as a photographer, you get to travel solo. Yeah. And it's such a great time to just be in your own sort of, area and environment, tune in with your thoughts and just like sort of zone out for a little bit and not be always on the go as a photographer. Like it's always fun to just decompress and actually enjoy that space.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I've done a few destination weddings, not clearly even close to how many of you've done. But the counterpoint I can say to this is, while I do agree with everything you just said there, going to destination weddings is a logistical nightmare for a photographer.
Yeah, what do you mean by that?
Especially if you're like a videographer.
Oh,
if you think about it, right?
Yeah.
The amount of
stuff you would have to take.
Yeah. So I would. It got to a point where, look, a lot of the times it's very hard to get like work permits in certain countries when you're shooting a wedding, right? So you pretty much have to go in as like, hey, I'm just there as like a friend of the bride and groom. That's what you literally have to tell them. And you just have to get like a non-work visa, like the easiest one to get, right? Like a holiday visa.
I'm assuming some countries are harder than others to get into.
So like, for example, US, like they're pretty, like if you want to go from Sydney to USA, like, or if you want to, like I did a wedding in India, even Fiji, when we went to Fiji, like I was like, bro, I hope I get all this equipment in, right? And then especially as a videographer, if you're going, you have like freaking like so many camera bodies. Like, okay, bro, your photographer life's easy, bro. If you're a photographer, one backpack, you got like 2 cameras in there, put a couple of lenses, right? You can just tell me you're like a YouTube creator or something, you just get into the country,
like,
right?
I'll just make YouTube videos.
And then watch me like right behind you coming with like 4 camera bodies, lights, batteries, light stands, tripods, everything. Like, it's crazy.
Everything. I would imagine, so for me, my biggest challenge was, bro, that I've weighed my camera bag, and I know you give me shit because it's like, oh, it's just one bag, but I've weighed it. Bro, it's 22 kilos. Yeah. That's a check-in carry-on. That's a check-in luggage bag right there. And for me, I'm like, I ain't checking that shit in, bro. That's like glass. Yeah, that's going on carry-on for sure. Yeah. Bro, the amount of times I've bitched it, I'm like, oh my God, I hope these guys don't freaking like find me or go, this can't come on board. It happened to me once. I was going from New York to London when I was transitioning from States to UK. And the airline attendant at New York was like, what the F is? It's like, this is 22 kilos. You can't take this on carry-on. I was like, oh, no. Like, don't worry about it. I had this airline do that from this one and it's fine. They go, mate, that's not how this works.
What did you do?
I was a little bitch, and so I had to put it through check-in.
Oh,
shit. I was bitching it the entire time because I was just like, oh my God. So I was so nervous. As soon as I landed, I think it was like 8 hours later in London, I picked up my bag, opened up everything, checked it. Is my glass okay? Is it crushed? Is it anything? Because I've seen some really fucked up videos of like
people just throwing
shit. And I'd literally take my bag saying fragile everywhere, but I don't trust it, right? You can't take any risks. So I was so concerned of going, is my bag going to be okay?
You know what I did? You know the backpack that I always carry with me, which has like it's supposed to be just like a normal camera backpack, right? Bro, I made that shit heavy as fuck. I put everything in there, right? But when I'm like a lot of people, like a lot of airlines, they normally don't end up checking backpacks,
sometimes,
right?
Sometimes.
Like there's a higher chance they don't check backpacks. They'll check like a roller bag or whatever.
If it looks like a particular size, let it go. But they won't weigh it.
And mind you, this is like a medium-sized backpack. It's not like it could come across as something which has got like a laptop in it,
or
right?
clothes or something small.
Clothes or whatever, bro. I like shoved shit in there. Like I played Tetris in that bag, shoving all my video gear, and I tell you, it was like 20 kilos, right?
Wow.
But when I was walking, I just walking like, this is nothing.
You walk up, you're trying to avoid looking like you got back pain and shit.
I'm just walking up, I'm just casual, just standing there, like, this is nothing. It's just a laptop in there. Inside, I'm like, oh,
you're like,
my shoulders are dying
and shit. Trying to look. I was like, oh, hey, I just got on a holiday. Nothing crazy for work or anything.
Yeah, so look, back to the point, like it's a logistical nightmare, especially like as a videographer, more than a photographer to do destination weddings. And the only way I ended up doing the Italy one was I knew a lot of mates that were going to that. So like one of my mates was taking one of my cameras, another person was taking something else, right? And then you get there and just get the equipment back off them, right? Otherwise, like forget about the weight of the equipment. Imagine like a customs guy just opening a bag. He's got like freaking 4 cameras, 4 this, 4 that. They're like, bro, are you sure you're just a traveler or you for work?
I'm like bitching it inside where I go through security and there's you put your camera bag in and you're like, fuck. And then it comes out the other end. And I know for a fact, 110% it's going to be pushed to the side. There has not been one flight trip that I've not taken where no one's not looked through that.
You're just staring at the passenger to see their facial expression. Like,
and I'm trying to look calm and be like, I'm an enthusiast.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
Enthusiast with a Canon R3. And
I had one guy open it up. Literally, this is him. Opens it up. That's the zipper noise. Opens it up. His face is like, what the F's is? And then he's like, he said, whoa. And I'm like, yeah, hey, how's it going? It's like, oh yeah, I'm passionate about cameras.
Yeah.
Okay, what's this for? I'm like, just traveling. And then look at me going, oh, okay. And then they do the swab thing where they have to see if there's any drugs and shit in there.
Yeah.
And then power banks were my biggest scare because they look at that and go, oh, if it's over a particular, the energy consumption levels or whatever, like if it's too heavy or if it's outside a particular range, they'll be like, you have to chug it out. That was fine. The batteries were fine. The batteries also scared of us all. That was fine. They looked at the lens, picked it up, and analyzed it. I was like, that was fine. And I've also got my laptop in there, so it's freaking heavy AF. But somehow I sometimes manage to get through.
You know what's funny? This reminds me, this is a bit off topic and not to do with, but this travel, one of my mates, he went to like US or something. The guy took his like iMac in his bag, right? Because he was just going there for like 6 months or a year to like, like to shoot music videos or whatever it was, right? The customs guy legit thought that he was like moving there and he was not going to fly back because he had all this shit. Like, who takes an iMac in a bag, right?
He's like, this guy's moving to the country.
This guy's 100% trying to like...
And he's not going to go back.
He ain't going to go. Yeah. So I actually don't know what happened, but I think either he got sent back or...
That's funny.
Or he just told him, but whatever. But how funny is that,
That's
bro?
interesting.
The legit thing, you're like moving countries and you're not going to go back. Yeah.
The pro of doing destination weddings as a photographer, and I realized this, was it actually enables you to network and to collaborate with local vendors. And I remember after the first destination wedding in Portugal that I did last year, I'd be like, done Portugal, I probably won't come back because I'm like, I somehow got lucky. This wasn't really like someone who I would think I would come by again in terms of, type of clientele. I'm like, I probably wouldn't, but the photos were good. They did, I put in a lot of effort for them. I even made YouTube videos out of it. It was great. Did all of that, shared it to vendors. I'm like, oh, look, on the off chance they need it, whatever, it's there. 5 months later, I got another inquiry. And and it was because the wedding planner there.
And now you already have a second shooter there.
Correct. People that I trust locally to go, hey, I need your help. Yep. And so far, I've done 3 Portugal weddings, and maybe one in every 6 months, I'll get another inquiry from Portugal is one. Yeah. And that's only because I've established a relationship with the wedding planner locally to that country, and she's amazing. She's wonderful. And so one of the things that destination weddings allow photographers to do specifically is to collaborate and to network beyond vendors that you normally would never have met, and it enables you up for future work. And so, say for instance, you're wanting to get into destination weddings, you get your first one, you go hard, and you make sure like you take good photos, good videos, but then you network. And whenever you meet a vendor, you get their Instagram, you get their IG handles, everything, and then you send them the content. And go, hey, I'd really love if you could share this. That'd be great if you could tag me. Brides might see it in the local area. They go, oh, who's this person? They're really good. You've already shot in that venue once. Chances are you could shoot again, or maybe in a neighboring venue. Either way, it does open you up for networking. You know what I mean? So really good advantage to do destination weddings as a photographer is just for that capability.
Yeah, fair enough. I think one thing that does come to mind as a con though of doing destination weddings is opportunity cost of doing destination weddings, right? So generally, if you're doing like a destination wedding, you're pretty much out for the whole week.
That is true.
Or even could even be 2 weeks, depending on where it is, right?
And how long it takes to get there. Yeah, that's true.
Like if you look at it just specifically from the financial perspective, right, of shooting a destination wedding, you could be shooting 2 or 3 weddings locally. In the same amount of time that you would probably shoot one destination wedding, right?
Yeah, I think you have to really question it. Go like, how much of it is this for me, like a business where I'm generating revenue, versus how much of it is it for me where I have an experience? And this comes down to a few things: what type of person you are, what your goals are for the year or for your business, and what you're happy to say no to. Because I feel like for me, when I was, doing this whole destination scene, I got local inquiries and I had to say no to that. Unless you're structured in a way where, by the way, if you have a company and you have multiple studios or multiple photographers underneath in your banner, that's okay. Yeah. But for the most part, as photographers, we're usually solo teams, right?
Especially you and me, like we're normally there like at every wedding. At every wedding, shoot, right?
Correct. Yeah. And I think this is a part where you need to really identify that if I say yes to this experience, it is a great experience. First of all, how much money would I make? Because maybe some photographers also lower their charges. I know I definitely did. I'm like, I really want this client. I might just shave off 10, 20%.
It's like, it's exciting as well. It's like you're shooting a 100%. Wedding in a different country. It also means that you get to shoot. And by the way, this is another pro that we'll talk about straight after. Is like you get to go to like new places, right?
For sure.
And it inspires new creativity.
For sure.
For example, you and me, we're literally always shooting in the same places.
Bro, I get so bored.
Like we've shot at a lot of venues again and again and again, right? Like, and I guess it is what it is.
It is what it is.
But the exciting aspect from like a photographer's point of view, for me especially, is like you get to shoot somewhere where you've never shot before.
Yeah, that's true.
Right? And that literally gives you more creativity.
Bro, how much? Like,
more,
we were so inspired in Italy. We're like, fuck, there's so much to do
everywhere
here.
you look is just like,
it's like, bro, I was like, I was frothing because I was like, there's so much to do here. Let's freaking go. Like, let's dominate. Let's take some mad photos, videos. Let's get everything here possible.
Dominate. I don't know what you mean by let's dominate, but
like, you dominate.
Control yourself.
I was motivated. Anyways.
Yeah, fair. Yeah.
But it does foster creativity. Like, you're in a country you never go to, right? And you're not in your natural habitat. You're not in a place where you shot 1,000 times. So you're forced to go with a fresh perspective.
Think outside the box a little bit as well.
Correct.
Yeah.
And so I think it does foster that creativity. But back to the original con, which was opportunity costs. This is something you got to decide, because you might be so inspired to go, actually, you know what, shit, like, I get to travel to, say, Greece, right? And it's beautiful and it's amazing. And let's just assume you're coming from Australia, which is a literal day just to fly there. Bro, that shit's exhausting. It's taxing. But also, not only that, let's just assume you go all the way to Greece from Australia, which takes a day. You mean to tell me you're going to come straight back? Nah, you'd probably stay there for like a couple extra days.
Yeah.
But in that time, especially if it's peak season, you best assure that you probably would have gotten an inquiry in the time locally in your city. Now, because you're factoring in your own expenses for travel after that wedding that you've shot abroad, this is now on you.
Yeah.
Now your expenses come up.
Yeah. So not only you're making less money while doing destination weddings generally, because you're trying to like
have an experience,
you kind of have an experience, right?
Whatnot.
Yeah, and all the other money you're going to spend while being there on a holiday, but it's a longer time frame that you're out from local.
And I don't think a lot of people realize
weddings,
that. I don't think a lot of people realize that. I think yes, it's glamorous, and I think yes, that lifestyle is great. It's a mad flex as a wedding photographer. But I had people who are like, "Oh my god, we live vicariously through you," and we get to see like you guys, you travel on your Instagram and do all this BTS stuff, and I'm like, that's great, and I'm very humbled that you guys appreciate that, and that's awesome. But bro, they don't know what I have to miss for that shit. I'm away from my family. I'm away from my friends. I miss out on situations or opportunities in my own business locally. There's a bit of a sacrifice there, and I don't think that's something that a lot of photographers talk about. And I'm glad we're sharing it here, because it's just giving a very vulnerable and very honest opinion about it. Because, yeah, it's great to shoot weddings abroad in European countries, but you miss out on a bit, and you might not have business access locally if you're going and saying no to these people who come through whilst you're abroad. You know what I mean?
Yep. Another pro that the photographers may not realize is, and I think this applies to you more, that if you do end up shooting a lot of destination weddings, you tend to have this image where you're a destination wedding photographer, which in turn ends up giving you more high-end clients.
So like a credibility factor and okay.
Yeah, I think it ties into the credibility factor, but it's also like the clients look at you as like more of a premium photographer, I would say, right?
That's interesting, because I remember in London, I don't know how this was a thing, but it was a thing. There were some couples that I overheard conversations going, photographer's Australian. And they almost said it as a flex. And I'm like, oh, that's interesting. And then I had one couple in some of these destination weddings come up to me and go, oh, we heard these guys flew you out from Australia. And I'm like, I lived in London, so they obviously missed that information to communicate to you. But sure. Yeah. I'm like, yeah, they did. But yeah, it's very random. Like, I suppose there are some couples who look at you and go, like, because you've done destination weddings, you must be versatile and experienced. You must be really good.
Which is true. Like, you do tend to be more experienced the more you do it.
That is true. Yeah. That is true. And I think, yes, it does set this like premiumization. I think that's the word.
I don't think that's a word, but
Premiumization?
Maybe it is. I don't know.
Right.
It sounds like something you just made
I'll just
up,
redo
but-
that.
Go on.
It
It's fine.
sets a premium vibe.
Yeah.
It sets a premium vibe.
Straight to like
Dumb it down. No, premium, I'm pretty sure
shitty
premiumization.
vocabulary straight
I'm
away.
pretty sure premiumize. Nah, fuck it. I
Make
can't
sure you
say
keep
it.
this in. Don't
Yeah,
cut
I'm
this shit
not
out.
gonna say it sets a premium vibe, bro. Like people look at you and go, "Oh shit, this guy's good." For instance, there are some photographers that we look up to in the industry. Shout out to Amrit Photography House in the Clouds, and these businesses are known to just literally be destination photographers, and they dominate. Again, dominate is just a word I keep coming back to, but it's true. Like you build such a credible portfolio to say that we've traveled to every country nearly in the world. These guys, Amrit Photography, based in I'm pretty sure Vancouver. I gotta fact check this shit later, but these guys flew out to New Zealand 2 weeks before I flew to New Zealand to capture a bride and then and a groom, and then to them to capture their own bride and groom. But it blows my mind that there was a couple all the way in New Zealand willing to fly these guys out all the way from America to come and shoot the wedding in New Zealand when they could have gotten a local vendor or a vendor from Sydney or Australia.
Yeah.
It speaks volumes when people recognize that these people are credible. There is a lot of skill there. We want to fly these guys out.
Yep.
And I think that's something that it does set up some photographers to have, like this credibility, this skill. It's like an accolade or like a little bit of a flex to go, hey, I've literally got a destination tab on my website that people can click on and go, oh, this guy's shot destination. Pretty cool.
Yeah. So that does in turn tend to result in higher paid clients and more premium clients in the future that are going to like, you know, splash. Like you've done some weddings where they've just gone like,
bro, I've
hard
literally been part of a wedding in what country was Germany, and I'm like, bro, it was in front of a lake. It was beautiful. They put everyone in hotels. It was wonderful. Great experience. Really great.
Decked out with decor and everything.
Yeah, it was fantastic.
Some of the photos you've shown me,
Yeah,
bro,
it was
like
fantastic.
that decor is like, you know, probably spent like 50 to 100K just on decor.
I've never seen that shit here locally.
Yeah.
And it does blow my mind. I'm like, these guys go out, they've got a bit more of a budget, they know how to party, and they're like celebrating in a very like bougie and expensive way.
We've talked about a lot of pros, right, and a lot of cons, but I think that one of the biggest cons, which relates back to the logistical nightmare that I talked about earlier, is like gear theft, right? Imagine trying to take like $50,000, $60,000 worth of equipment with you in a flight, and then having it travel around with you everywhere with you if you're in a train, you're in a bus, whatever, right? Yeah. Like you're more prone to gear theft, and a lot of people like if you go into like a country like, you know, France or something, where Paris, like
Paris,
you know, there's like so many scammers there. There's so many like thieves and stuff you come across,
bad.
right?
It's bad. Like I don't know. I'm pretty sure. I don't know if you've seen this, but even in San Fran, where crime rates are typically high, but like there's literally photographers. It's gone viral, getting robbed at gunpoint. That's how messed up it is, right? I'm not willing to take chances when I'm traveling, bro. I'm eyeing my bag like a hawk. I make sure it's always seen.
Yeah, but what are you gonna do if they pull out a gun? You can be a hawk. You can do whatever.
Obviously, you'll be a little bitch and be like, I want my life, not my camera. Fair enough. But you take like precautionary measures, right? If I go traveling whilst I'm shooting abroad and I'm leaving my hotel, bro, I'd lock everything and I make sure like everything's probably packed away. Just you can never be too sure. You know what I mean?
And as photographers, I think that's one thing you should also keep in mind: which country you're going to.
Yeah, true.
Right?
Yeah,
because each country's got has its own risks and difficulties.
So
that
make sure, sidebar, you have insurance, because this shit actually helps when you have insurance, and then like your shit, like your gear gets stolen. Like it can happen. So make sure you have insurance.
Yeah.
The other last thing I can think of as a con is that some photographers, including myself, like I've gotten, say, an inquiry from Greece that I know I hadn't shot there before and I hadn't been there before, and I'm going there for the first time. Bruh, like I was nervous. I'm not going to lie. You're always up against photographers in that regard who know the area better than you. Like people can come here to Sydney and go, oh, I'm going to shoot in Sydney. That's awesome. But they will never be able to like know the area as good as you and I, right? Because we've
shot up 50, 60 different locations.
Hundreds of weddings here. We've known every location under the sun. We just know it.
Yeah.
And so when we go abroad, we don't know what's going on. We don't know the local city. We don't know the local country. We don't know anything. Like we have no idea. Like I'm literally browsing TikTok locations. I'm going on like Reddit forums. I'm going on like websites of photographers who have shot there and put a blog out. I'm like researching hard because I don't want to miss anything. And you probably might shoot at areas that like you think are great, but then are tourist traps.
Yeah.
And Santorini was one of them. I'm like, oh, this is going to be epic, bruh. I got effed over. It was that bad. Like there were so many tourists there, but you got to make it work. And I think that's something that a lot of photographers don't realize is that it's not home ground. You're traveling. You don't know where these areas are. So be mindful of that when you are traveling to go, hey, I just want to make sure I'm across it. And it is a bit of a con because sometimes you might have gone to a destination, come back and realized I've missed like 10 amazing epic places that I could have shot up, but I didn't.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So food for thought. And I think, there are pros and cons to this as a photographer, as a videographer.
Mind you, that last one you talked about, I mean, there's a ways to overcome that. Right, which is that you can, as you said, do a bit more research. Like do a lot of research before you go to a country that you're going, so you know where you want to shoot.
Where you want to shoot,
right?
You know exactly what you need to do when you
potentially even talk to like local photographers if you can.
I remember for the Portugal wedding, my second, I literally asked him, I'm like, bro, like I need you to guide this a little bit more. He stepped up and it was great. Obviously, like he took us around, but I still led shoots whilst I'm there. But he knew the areas,
and I think that's one thing you like. If you find a second in a country that you're shooting, that's definitely like gives you a lot of.
I remember I had to spend like days, literally days, DMing photographers in the local area to second shoot for me because I didn't want to have someone from UK to come on board when the client. When I was living in the UK at the time, just said, I'll fly you out. Can you find someone local? Stuff like that. Sometimes, again, logistical things. But I remember trying to message people, and also some of their rates were messed up. Some of their rates for what they charge for second shooting were a bit different to what we've experienced.
I think that's another episode
that's probably another
that
con
we're
I've
going to
just
talk
realized.
about altogether. No, that's actually like another episode in its own.
Oh, okay.
About just second shooting rates.
We'll dive into that in a second episode at some point. But in terms of like not knowing what the local charges were, in terms of what second shooters were going to charge you, I was like, whoa, this is actually a lot. I didn't factor this in from my budget. But it's hard because also you don't know anyone. So I'm spending hours trying to find like photographers to help me out. And that took up a lot of time. And to find good ones as well. Like there were some really interesting ones and there were really like some really epic ones. But you have to rely on some of these people because they're there to guide you as your second to go, actually, this is the location I would recommend because it's a really good place to shoot.
Well, anyways, I hope this episode helped couples, deciding whether they would want to go for a destination wedding or not, and photographers that are potentially wanting to do destination weddings. Hopefully, it helps them to navigate these difficulties.
I think you need to decide, obviously, based on the points that we've sort of broached here. And I think we've taken it from the lens, excuse the pun, from a photographer's perspective, if you are a photographer listening in or watching this, as also a couple's perspective and knowing that there are pros and cons to that too. And if you guys did enjoy that, let us know. Let us know what your favorite parts were. Comment in the section down below. Subscribe if you haven't already. Put the bell icon on. And we will see you guys in the very next episode.
Peace.
Cheers.